Welcome to Cuisines and Cocktails. I'm your host, Chef James Jens of Dinners with Class from Wisconsin. And today, we're going to start out with a Vodka Stinger. It's an old school drink, and if you're a big fan of Agatha Christie, and you'll understand where this drink comes from. Chilled cocktail glass, 2 ounces of vodka, and 1 ounce of creme de menthe. Shake. And now if you're like Hercule Poirot, you drink this out of a little tiny straw. This is a great after dinner drink. And there you go, Vodka Stinger. When we come back, we'll be working on a Bloody Mary shrimp cocktail with a gazpacho relish and chicken fricasse with Creole sauce. So we're going to start out with the chicken fricasse. We're going to take the leg quarters that we processed, and we're going to make a drudging flour. We're going to put a little bit of whole wheat flour, some salt, white pepper, cayenne pepper, some sassafras, smoked paprika, and some black pepper. Just gonna mix this around. We're gonna turn the power on. A little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan. And you can be kind of liberal with the oil because we got 4 leg quarters to get crispy. As long as all the herbs and spices are intermingled, we can take the leg quarters, roll them around. Just to kind of give you a walkthrough of the rest of the dish, all the yellow squash, zucchini, and celery, and the red onions, the green onions, the peppers, and tomatoes, we're all going to get diced, and as the chicken cooks in the pot and gets nice caramelized brown, we're going to finish cutting up the rest of the peppers, which is the holy trinity of Creole cooking. Skin side down first. And you can kind of cram them in here. And we'll want to reserve some of this flour to make a roux, like we did, I think it was episode 1 or 2, something like that. We'll make a roux to help thicken the sauce as we braise the chicken legs in the Creole sauce. Let me wash my hands real quick. And while those are caramelizing, we can cut up our peppers. Again, make as many flat sides as possible with your produce. So with Creole cooking, all cultures have basically the same basic techniques. And in Creole cooking, like French cooking, they have the standard mirepoix. In French cooking, it's carrots, celery, and onions. In Creole cooking, they add peppers to that almighty mix, and they usually don't use as many carrots in their mirepoix. So it'd be peppers, onions, and celery. And the other thing we're going to use from previous episodes is that chicken stock that we made when we first broke down those 2 chickens. We're going to use that chicken stock to cook the leg and thighs in. And some of this pepper we're also going to use for the Bloody Mary shrimp cocktail with gazpacho relish. for an appetizer. So we'll reserve some of the pepper for that. And we're gonna have a couple of jalapenos just to add a little bit more spice since it is a Creole dish. But again, if you like heat, add another jalapeno. If you don't, only use one. And a couple of tomatoes. We'll remove the core. And let's check on these chicken thighs. So when the one side it looks nice and golden brown, you can flip it over. Get nice and caramelized on the other side. This is a crucial step. Don't just kind of go quickly over this. This is where you build those base flavors. Whenever I do in-home cooking classes, I always kind of use the analogy. When you're cooking food, it's kind of like building a house. You want to spend more time on the foundation, the framing, the structure of the house than the paint. You can always change the paint in the end, but you can never change the foundation once the whole house is built. This is a foundation piece of your flavors. This is where all your base flavors come from, this step right here. So take your time and really get good caramelization on the chicken. So we have the caramelized vegetables all sweated out and they're nice, and we're gonna add a little bit of the flour. And you just want to dry up any of the fat and chicken fat and the oil that is in the bottom of the pan. And then what we're going to do, take our chicken broth that we made, strain it through a colander or mesh strainer if you have one. And we're going to stir this around, make sure you get all the caramelization and the fond and the roux off the bottom of the pan so it doesn't stick and burn. We want to bring this up to a nice hard boil. We'll add the chicken back into the pot, cover it, and then we'll put it in the oven for about 25-30 minutes. Broth is just starting to boil, and you'll find that it thickens rather quickly. And once that happens, we can add the chicken back in. And if you want, at this point, is probably a good time to take a spoon and just taste the broth, see if it's where it needs to be. All right, it's wonderful. We're going to cover this, put it in a 350-degree oven, about 20 minutes. And while that's baking, we can work on the shrimp cocktail. So before we start with the shrimp cocktail, I just want to give a quick thought to rice that we can serve the chicken over. So we're going to do 1 cup of white long grain rice and 1.5 cups of chicken broth. We're going to bring to a boil. When it boils, we're going to turn it down to a simmer, cover, cook for about 12 to 14 minutes till the water is all absorbed, and then we'll have rice, and by the time the rice is done, the chicken will be good to go. So I'm just going to set this in back out of our way. And then for the shrimp cocktail, we're literally going to make a cocktail and cook the shrimp cocktail in a cocktail. So we're going to make a Bloody Mary, tomato juice, little bit of vodka. And if you want to have, if you have your favorite Worcestershire sauce, if you have your favorite Bloody Mary mix, you can definitely just use the Bloody Mary mix. But in Wisconsin, we build our own Bloody Marys from scratch many times. And then I'm gonna put, just to give the shrimp a little bit extra flavor, some crushed garlic, some pepper, some salt. I got brunoise of peppers and celery. And this is going to be both our poaching liquid for the shrimp and the base for the relish. We're just going to bring this up to a boil. And then once it comes to a boil, we'll add the shrimp. Okay, so basically the Bloody Mary that we made in the saucepan is boiling nicely. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add our shrimp, stir it around, turn off the heat, and let it simmer till the shrimp turn pink. Most people overcook shrimp. If you think of shrimp getting to a letter C, that's when they're cooked. You don't want them to be an O, that's overcooked, but a nice C shape is really when they're cooked. So if we just let these sit for a few seconds, you can see that just the residual heat of the sauce boiling, and they're getting firm to the touch. You have less likelihood of them overcooking. And since we're gonna wanna use these in a little bit, we're gonna put some ice in a strainer. And see how they're just a nice C, not a overly cooked, hard O shape. Put a few more ice cubes on top just to chill it down, stop the cooking process. And then we'll set these aside, and we will turn this back on and reduce this sauce to make more of a gazpacho. And we'll add some cucumber and green onions, a little bit of seasoning at the end, and then we'll have our shrimp cocktail. And by then the rice will be done and the chicken fricasse will come out of the oven. So stay tuned while we wrap this up, this episode of Cuisines and Cocktails up shortly. So the tomato cocktail sauce, it has reduced nicely. And before we finish this, I'm just gonna grab the chicken out of the oven to make sure it's where it needs to be. Oh yeah, chicken's nice and looking good. Okay, so to finish our gazpacho relish, we're gonna brunoise some cucumber to add to the tomato relish that we made and poached our shrimp in. You can also, if you want, if you're doing this for like a large event or party, make this sauce and then freeze it in ice cube trays. Then you can put them kind of around on top of the shrimp to keep the shrimp cool, and as they melt, they glaze the shrimp with their own sauce. And we're going to, for garnish, we're going to take a lime oil, put that on our cocktail glass. We're going to squeeze the rest of the lime into our sauce. Alrighty. Give this a quick little stir. And if you wanted to, you can put this over ice to chill it down, or we can serve it just as is. It gives it a nice twist with the cold shrimp and the warm sauce. And we'll put some shrimp. tails exposed so they're easy to grab and dip into the sauce. And just fill up the rest of this glass. And there's Bloody Mary shrimp cocktail. Here's our white rice that we cooked. Put this down as a nice bed. This is basically gonna be served family style. And we have our chicken fricasse. And we'll just glaze it with some of this Creole sauce. And if you're into making soups or gumbo, this broth can be totally used for more options. You don't have to just get rid of it. I'm a big believer in doing one thing and then making new options out of it. There we go. Braised chicken fricasse over white rice with Creole sauce and with Bloody Mary shrimp cocktail. I'm your host, James Jens of Dinners with Class, and you've been watching Cuisines and Cocktails. Enjoy.